You'd scream too if you saw those late rental fees. Here's a look at the Royal Bobbles Scream Hot Topic exclusive Ghostface. Want to watch a scary movie? Join Ghostface for a date night with a Scream bobblehead from Royal Bobbles, featuring Ghostface holding a VHS tape with a knife going through it. Well, when it comes to Rewind, this killer's far from kind. Before, of course, we get a closer look at the Hot Topic exclusive Ghostface, what appears to be in a video store, I'd like to send out a big thank you to the folks over at Royal Bobbles that did provide this sample we could have a look at. I'm going to grab as well the tape measure to see how tall the Royal Bobbles Ghostface is. And then as well, I'll bring in the earlier looked at one so you guys can see the differences between the two. Ghostface in this case stands about 8 inches in height, or the bobblehead is going to be about 20 centimeters tall. Usually when it comes to these movies, Ghostface terrorizes in twos, so I'm going to slide over the one that we're about to have a look at from Hot Topic, and I wanted to bring in the earlier looked at Ghostface bobblehead. It seems to be the case that the head sculpts are shared the same. It does look like the robes are going to be slightly varied from one to the other, and instead of Ghostface to the left holding the blade in his hand, which is probably not a good idea, the other Ghostface, though, seems to be stabbing through a case that he rented at Blockbuster. Speaking of Blockbuster, I do really like the way that they've added the video store back shelf behind Ghostface. Granted, all of this has just been printed on with a label, but still, you get the full effect of him actually walking through a video store and, I guess, selecting some of his favorite titles, or maybe not necessarily the titles that he's loving. He's pulled off one from what I can see, at least on the top shelf, and has proceeded then to stab through it. Oh, I'm looking at that. Oh, it's Beaches. Maybe he had the right idea in mind. I do really like the touch of having this as being a backdrop to Scream's Ghostface here in the front. An additional touch I really like is the fact that you do have a broken open tape with the reel of the film inside, all unraveled. The way they've actually colored it is pretty close to the blood red that they've got in the back. So in a way, it kind of looks like its guts all hanging out of the videotape. Then, of course, when we get a closer look at Ghostface, speaking of blood, it is consistently handled here when it comes to his head sculpt. You can see some additional blood splattered all across his face that really wasn't there on the original Ghostface to bring back in that original bobblehead, so you can see the differences between the two. Yeah, it does seem to be, at least from what I can see, the exact same head sculpts. You can see them from side to front as well. The only thing different really between the two is the fact that this one does have, again, all this additional glorious blood. The figure is carrying, of course, a blade, his trademark weapon of choice. And again, I really love the way that that's stabbing through the box. They have printed on both the front and the back of the tape. And while it's not necessarily telling us exactly what video store he's visiting, you kind of get at least a vibe that's kind of similar to like a Blockbuster by the way they've got the blue and the yellow represented here. The back of this, while not actually having any label, at least looks finished, which I like as well. Actually, in fact, everything is really finished on the bobblehead. If we tilt it upside down, you can see on the bottom, Royal Bobbles, premium quality collectibles. You can head on over to their website at www.royalbobbles.com. You can also take the easier route of scanning the QR code if that's something that you have available on your phone. And of course, as always, you're getting treated to 4 rubberized feet on the corners. Not in this case necessarily a square shape. As you can see, it kind of goes off to the side to accommodate the boarding behind him. It's a really nice looking bobblehead, carefully packed once again inside the box. You saw at the beginning of the review that these are very stored carefully inside of styrofoam. And then you have to pull off the plastic. And then there's actually just a little foam sheet that is underneath the bobblehead to prevent, of course, the head from bobbling back and forth. If you look to inside of it, you can almost even see that there's a spring that's at the very top of the neck. And it actually attaches to the inside cavity of the head. Serving up and living up to its name, it certainly does bobble pretty well. Being that this is more kind of geared as a higher-end collectible, this is not something you would want to be very loose with or something that you would want to be playing a lot with, because of course there's always the risk of something potentially breaking on the bobblehead. I mean, the biggest one being the fact that the head is probably going to be breaking if you're not too careful if this thing was to take a tumble, but also as well things like, for example, the blade. Being that the blade is probably made of the same material of the resin, it'd be very more susceptible, I would imagine, to breaking if this was to fall, say, forward. Something also too is with the way that the robe comes down. You've got the little dragging, dangling pieces to the robe. This one area right here, when I was first taking it out, I almost had the urge to put my finger against this as I was pulling it out of the styrofoam. Good thing I didn't either, because there's enough of a space right here that if you put pressure against this, most likely that would start to crack and buckle the resin. It's a well-painted piece, though. Again, you've got all this really nice additional blood. It didn't really necessarily need to have the blood. The fact it changes his environment and has him inside of a video store this time around, instead of the original one that we just looked at before that had the blood all over the actual base that he's standing on top of. There's enough differences between the two that you don't feel it's simply just a repaint. Repainted in the sense that, yes, they did actually splatter on the blood on the front of his face, but differently designed altogether with a brand new incorporated backdrop. I like the idea of him being in a video store because that's really the whole idea of Scream anyways. It's somebody who has a love of movies and takes it way too far. This is again available over at Hot Topic. I think at the time of doing this review, Hot Topic had the sale going on for this specific Ghostface, which I think it was around $26, originally standing at about $36. So they dropped it about a $10 price point. Definitely, if you are a fan, though, of Ghostface and you like the designs of what they're doing over at Royal Bobbles, definitely one that you would want to pick up. But normally, though, while these would be ones you'd be ordering online, if you are lucky enough to have a Hot Topic in your area, you could definitely go into the actual brick and mortar stores and grab one for yourself. If you don't have a Hot Topic, like I don't have a Hot Topic, then your options to get this guy might be a little bit more limited. You may want to have to then shop online if you're interested to get Ghostface for yourself. Hot Topic has had a history of releasing exclusive horror bobbleheads from Royal Bobbles, Ghostface making several appearances, in fact. Other than this one, the one that I was also really interested to get at some point is the Ghostface that has sort of his body sticking out the top of a theater marquee. It's a really neat looking Ghostface too. And while the head seems to be shared with this one as the one that we looked at before, at least it seems like the bottom of his robe is completely newly sculpted. Sculpted and carefully handled here in resin and painted by hand, I believe. And he's also got, again, the additional features of having the video store shelf behind him. And then he's impaling one of the videotapes he apparently doesn't fancy too much with his knife. Now, looking at that, I giggily said that it was actually Beaches. Looking at it, though, closely, I think it's actually Scream 3. Yeah, nobody really likes Scream 3. But what do you guys think, though, of the Hot Topic exclusive Ghostface in the video store? Have you had the chance to get this one for yourself? Or are there other exclusives that are available over at Hot Topic that you have picked up in the past? Doesn't have to necessarily be bobbleheads. Hot Topic actually has exclusives of other things as well. And also let me know if you actually have a Hot Topic store in your area. Also, as well, if you guys enjoyed this video, I want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, you certainly would like to stick around for more. And also, hey, if you guys like the reviews of these bobbleheads, by the way, courtesy of the folks over at Royal Bobbles, we will be looking at some future ones in upcoming videos. So, of course, making sure you're coming back here on a regular basis. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.